I am getting ready to do some painting here today. Had the fifth wheel sandblasted, and this is the fifth wheel mounting plate here, and then these angles and flat plates are also mounts for the fifth wheel. Got an exhaust bracket here, a couple more angle irons for the exhaust brackets, and then some fifth wheel parts along here, exhaust bracket for the muffler there, and then here are the brackets I had made at the fab shop for the rear fenders to bolt them onto the frame. I got a couple coats of primer and a couple coats of Nason full thane red on the parts. So far look pretty good. Here are some of those parts that I painted. There's the exhaust stack bracket. You can see I got the ubiquitous chrome stack there. You have to have a chrome stack, and exhaust in, but the bracket was what I painted. And then around here, painted the intake pipe support. So got the intake pipe and boots and everything on. And then over here, there's the fifth wheel that I painted. And I'll flip that over and get the rest of the parts and show you how I put that together. I neglected to show you some of these other parts that got painted, which is the fifth wheel mounting plate. And you can see I've got a spacer, half-inch spacer underneath of it, because these bolts would be inside into the frame rail. Obviously you can't have that, so the spacer allows me to have this bolt in here to hold the fifth wheel down. And then got the angle irons here that bolt the plate to the frame rail. And then this is your rear fender bracket that holds up the center of the rear fenders. And the left side here. So you can see how all that works. I got all the parts together here, got the fifth wheel flipped over so I can put all these parts back in it. And it's been about a year since I took it apart, so hopefully hopefully I can figure out how everything goes back together. And if I get it wrong, it's not critical. You know, if you drop the fifth wheel, or excuse me, drop the trailer on the highway, that wouldn't be that big of a deal. Got the rubber block up in here, which kind of cushions when the tractor hooks to the trailer. And then this is the actual lock assembly itself that slides into these two ramps here. And you can see it's got these pins that slide in here. This goes like this. Hard to do with one hand. And then these pins hold the two locks together. So I'll get that stuck in there and move ahead. I got those pieces up in the track there, and now I've got the piece that holds them in a lock position. When you have a trailer hooked up, you see you got a spring under here, and this ought to be fun. And if that spring would stay in there, this piece would go in here. The spring keeps it in the lock position. Kind of a two-handed thing, but anyway, this lifts up and holds the jaws so that the trailer won't come unhooked until you release it. And then this is the locking mechanism that keeps the jaws locked. And I'll get some more of that together and show you. I got the lock in place, and you can see I got these pins in here and the bolts that hold the pins in. And you can see how this works. The spring locks the or pushes the lock up so that when the trailer, it's hard to do by hand, but anyway, when you have it hooked to a trailer, this lock will come up and hit right here, and it'll keep those jaws in place so that the fifth wheel doesn't come unhooked from the trailer. And then here's a cam that, oh, that's why it wouldn't move. Now you can see it locks right here, and the spring right here forces it to lock. Of course, that's also down, and the weight of this chunk of cast iron here on this cam is another aid in keeping the thing locked, because it holds this out of the way of the jaws. Actually doesn't keep it locked, but holds this cam out of the way of the jaws so that the jaws work freely to lock the kingpin. And I'll continue on here. I got all those pieces fastened in, got the lock and this cam that actuates the lock here. So if you watch, this releases the lock when you push forward on this lever here, and theoretically this cam holds the lock down so that this jaw here can slide in these tracks and come out of the way to let the kingpin slide on out of there. So that part's done, and now I've got the mounting stands, one on each side. And see if I can get this dude up in here. He's kind of heavy. That goes in there. And we got this giant pin goes in here. And we got a spring and this giant cotter pin. I got to compress the spring and get the cotter pin back in there. So I'll see if I can get that done. Did want to make a couple comments. If I was building this fifth wheel to be used in an actual, day-to-day operation or anything like that, or really to be used at all, I would have used more lubrication on a lot of these parts, because obviously things like this won't work too well when they're dry, especially when they start to rust. But since I'm just putting this together to put on a restored truck that I hope to never hook a trailer to, I'd put too much time and effort and money into this thing to use it to pull a trailer around. I know a lot of people don't like that, but that's just me. Also, this fifth wheel is built by ASF, which stands for American Steel Foundries, and it was a very popular fifth wheel back in the day. This came off a 1959 Mack H model, and as you can see, it's most likely original because that says 1058, which would be October 1958 manufacturing date. And so obviously they're probably the original fifth wheel on this truck. I got the cotter pins in, as you can see, which was fun. I took a pair of pry bars and compressed this spring by prying against this flange down here on the bottom, compressed the spring and dropped the cotter pin in, and that was a lot of fun. And now I've got a strap supporting the fifth wheel, and got my hoist, as you can see, picking the thing up so I can flip it over and get ready to set it on the truck. So I'll shut the camera off until I get the thing flipped over and up in the air. Got the fifth wheel up high enough and got it maneuvered onto the frame, and I'll start lowering it. Not always easy to pull this chain when you first start going down. That way you can chip up the paint on everything around you, so I'll use both of my hands to keep from doing that. And here we have one completed fifth wheel installation. You can see got the plates bolted to the angle, and then the fifth wheel mounts bolted to the plate, and on the outboard mounted to the angle as well. Everything's tightened to 150 foot-pounds, and move on to the next item, see what else I can get accomplished.